Hello, I am back again with another episode of Rating Viral Recipes, and today, Shin Ramen is our test subject. Shin Ramen is probably one of the most popular ramen brands out there. There's something about their soup base, the little bit of spicy, the savoriness. There's something about their noodles that are extra bouncy. To quickly clarify, this episode is not sponsored by them. I do personally just also really enjoy their noodles on their own. And I feel like in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of different ways to enjoy this already very good pack of ramen. So as per usual, I have curated a list of 8 different recipes. There's some really popular ones that you may have seen before, and there's also some more peculiar ones that may or may not be good. We shall find out. I'll be using 2 different packagings of the ramen today because some require the cup version. But honestly, you could probably do a bunch of these with your favorite spicy ramen noodles. With that said, let's get into it. First up, we have a very, very garlicky creation that involves using 2 entire bulbs of garlic. Even as a huge fan of garlic, I'm a little intimidated. But this one was created by a 3 Michelin star chef, so I feel like we just have to trust the process. I'm just trimming the top and bottom while trying to keep the bulbs mostly intact. Then I'm wrapping them all up in foil and roasting in the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for around 40 minutes. I know some people also use the air fryer, but it's whatever it takes until they're very tender, very soft, and slightly golden. And then once the garlic's ready and roasted, they go straight into the water, where the key is to create a sweet garlicky broth with it. So to do that, I'm just trying to gently mash them, squeeze the cloves out, crush it some more, so it can really add those flavors into the soup base. Once everything's kind of mashed up, I'm just removing the leftover skin and adding in the ramen noodles as well as the seasoning packet. And from this point, really just cooking it according to the package instructions. The last step though, the finishing touch, is to crush some of the uncooked ramen leftover bits from the bottom of the packet and just sprinkle it on top of the noodles as a crunchy garnish of sorts. And that is a Michelin approved bowl of ramen. This is still bubbling as we speak. Dang. As a fan of culinary class wars, I've been wanting to make this for a very long time. If you haven't watched it yet, it's on Netflix. It's a Korean cooking challenge show, and there's just so many stages in it that actually I think are really inspiring if you're looking for creative ideas of how to approach different ingredients. But this one specifically was designed by the judge himself, the 3 Michelin star chef, Chef An. So as skeptical as I am about putting 2 entire garlic bulbs in here, curious to see how it tastes. Let me try this broth by itself. Oh, I thought it was going to be extremely garlicky, but it's really not at all. It actually kind of is more like a mellowed out garlic flavor, like a very nice undertone that I think complements this type of soup base. The garlic, once it's like roasted and crushed together, it kind of makes the broth creamier. Initially, it might be harder to differentiate at that first bite, but I feel like when you let that taste linger a little bit on the back of your tongue, you definitely feel that sort of richness and the depth that the garlic brings, which is crazy because 2 giant bulbs of garlic. The beauty about roasting the garlic first just makes it softer and sweeter. Okay, chef, I see what you're doing here. I don't know what that last little sprinkle of ramen bit was about though. I know he said texture, but by the time you kind of fold everything in, it's all kind of a little bit soft. So I would give this a solid 8 out of 10. I think it's a brilliant idea. It is unfortunately more time consuming though, so if you have the time, worth a try. next one is a recipe that I actually did a few years back when I was recreating a bunch of celebrity ramen recipes. And this one by K-pop star Chenle was one of my favorites. It's sort of similar to our first hack in that it's also very much about elevating the base broth, only this time it's with fresh tomatoes and chili oil. So I'm just chopping the tomato up into smaller chunks. This way it can cook faster and release more of that flavor into the broth. So that's all I'm doing here, and tossing that straight into the boiling water and really letting it cook down. Crushing it does help with really getting those umami sweet flavors out. So now we kind of have this tomato broth of sorts. Also, the original recipe calls for using laoganma, an iconic Chinese chili oil brand that I highly recommend if you haven't tried yet. But I had this other open chili oil sitting in my fridge that has a similar flavor profile, so that's what I'm going with this time. And a spoonful of that was all it took to instantly turn the color of my broth into a very vibrant red. Wow. The noodles go right in, along with the seasoning packet, which I did deliberately try to put less in of. But the very final thing to do at the end here is when the noodles are almost done, I'm pouring in a beaten egg very slowly and just continuously stirring the noodles while I'm doing so. This is just to help the eggs cook more evenly, but it also definitely thickens the broth a lot more. So now it's extra hearty. This actually kind of smells like hot pot. Probably is because of the chili oil used, which in the original recipe, he does say to add laoganma, which is his favorite chili oil. This is my current favorite that I found at the Asian grocery store, which has very similar notes, and so that's where most of that fragrance is coming from. Oh, that broth is good. I remember liking it a lot, even when I first did it. So hot, okay. The concept of it is very similar to the first one we tried, right? Where the first one uses roasted garlic as a broth base, and this time they're using tomato as the base. And maybe this is my bias showing a little bit, but I love it when we add fruit and vegetables to soup. I feel like it adds that extra bit of sweetness that you can't really replace with anything else. This one also has notes of, my favorite tomato and egg, my favorite comfort food, even though at the same time it also feels like hot pot noodles. So it's just a lot of my favorite things rolled into one. The chili oil I used isn't like super spicy, it more adds that punch of flavor. So I think it'd be good to add whichever chili oil or chili crunch you prefer in terms of taste. This one is a high 9 for me. Really does feel like a shortcut hot pot soup base. So good, so good. Mayo is really having a comeback these few years. It might sound a bit strange at first, right? But mayo ramen is a thing now. And I know this because I also did this one with the fire ramen a few videos back. Same process, where we're combining a couple of ingredients in a bowl. There's one raw egg yolk, some Kewpie mayo, some grated garlic, and the Shin Ramen seasoning packet. And all we have to do is just whisk it all together really well until there are no lumps left, and it becomes this thick, creamy paste. And this is what's going to be the base for our soon-to-be creamy broth. So after cooking the noodles until they're perfectly al dente, the most important step here is to very slowly pour half of the hot noodle water into the mayo mixture while you're stirring constantly. If you just dump it all in straight, you're gonna cook the egg and end up with something you do not want. So slowly does it, and that's what will give you that silkiness we're looking for. So in goes my noodles. I'm just trying to jazz it up a little, fold it like how they serve it at an actual ramen restaurant, dotting it with a little more chili oil at the very top, a sprinkle of seaweed, and you'll never be able to tell that's mayo broth. For those of you who watched the fire ramen hacks, you might recognize this one. Also the use of mayo, which I feel like is one of the most popular ones right now. Something about adding the mayo and the egg yolk makes it extra creamy. So let's see how the Shin Ramen one does with this hack. Let me try the broth by itself. I feel like this one tastes less creamy than I expected to, especially in comparison to the first two that we already tried. There is a little more body to it, which I would attribute to the egg yolk and also the mayo. That's a lot of eggs in here, but I feel like it is still relatively subtle. I don't think it comes through as much as I would like it to. I do like the concept of it though, the idea of adding some sort of creaminess, which reminds me, someone just told me the other day that apparently there's one where people are adding milk tea, boba milk tea, to ramen broth. That one's a little too crazy even for me. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little disappointed by this one, I think. So 4 out of 10. I see what it's doing, but I almost feel like I prefer the original as is. Before we continue, I just want to say a quick thank you to our sponsor for today, Bombas, who you know is my favorite sock brand, my go-to for all things sock related. If you've been following along and watching my videos, you already know how much I use them on a daily basis. The weather's been getting warmer here in New York City, which is lovely, and so I've been swapping out my fuzzy socks for these crew socks. These have been with me for 4 years now. But also recently, as a little treat for myself, I bought these new pair of lightweight socks, and what is so cute about them is that they have this little frilly top on top. Just wanted to make things a little more fun for the spring weather. And as always with Bombas, for every pair purchased is another pair donated, so you can feel good and do good with them knowing that your purchase is doing some real good. This is one brand that I keep partnering with because of just how much I love them. So if you haven't given them a try yet, new customers get 20% off at bombas.com. You can use my code Inga and get some new socks. All right, back to our recipes. Okay, we've officially arrived at the bizarre portion of the video because this one is a cold noodle recipe using Sprite. It's wild, but this is a viral take from China that's supposed to completely transform Shin Ramen into something super refreshing on a hot day. So we shall see. Starting with the core flavor base, I have some grated garlic, some crushed chili flakes, sesame seeds, and also just half of the seasoning packet in a bowl here. And right over the spices, I'm pouring on some hot oil, making essentially a quick chili oil that smells amazing. The next step is to add in Sprite, like actual Sprite soda, not cooking it down or anything, full carbonation and sweetness just straight into that oil. You can't see me behind the camera, but watching this fizz like crazy while I'm trying to stir it up was just fascinating. And to balance out that sweetness, we do have some Chinese zhenjiang vinegar and soy sauce. And really just adding that to taste. So a lot of adjusting, mixing, testing it out until you have this extremely flavorful, sweet and savory, spicy broth sauce situation. Also, this time after boiling the ramen noodles, I'm shocking them in ice water to give them that chewy texture before draining it completely. So once that's done, they go right into the bowl with our prepared broth, topped with some sliced cucumbers, scallions, cilantro, even some lemon slices. Can't believe we started from a Shin Ramen packet and a bottle of Sprite, but here we are. This smells so good. It is actually so rare that the one that I'm most skeptical about is also the one that I've been looking forward to the most. The fact that we used Sprite as the sauce, we didn't even cook it off, that is pretty crazy as a concept to me. Like, I know Coca-Cola chicken wings are a thing, but this time we are straight up just pouring like sugar in here, and I don't know, we shall see. It smells so promising though. I'm gonna try a bite with the cucumbers. What? I don't know why I blew on the noodles. This is literally cold. You guys, this one is crazy. Oh my God. I genuinely would not be able to tell you that there was Sprite in here. I think the Sprite honestly just like substitutes for the sugar that we normally put in here, and then the spice packet is basically the MSG. But this together with the springiness of the ramen noodles, it is so bouncy, so chewy. This is actually insane. This is so close to like an actual cold noodle dish. And the fact that it utilizes the ramen packet itself too, it's not just like something where we toss it away. I know it's a little early, but I think this really might be the winner here. I could eat this as a normal everyday meal. Even right now, I'm like, I keep eating it. I already had so much and I can't stop. That sweetness works together so well. Very, very refreshing. Oh my goodness, okay. Wow, Sprite and instant ramen, what do you know? It works. No questions, a straight 10 out of 10. I would give this an 11 out of 10 if I could. I am so impressed. I can't get over it. This is so good. All right, what do you know? We have another Sprite-based recipe lined up, but this time we have a Korean take that takes a completely different approach. Instead of a ramen packet, we're going with a ramen cup. And that's because instead of boiling the noodles in water, I'm actually soaking them directly and only in Sprite for about 30 minutes until they soften. I feel like even the soda thinks it's crazy, but we're doing it anyways, and we'll see if it actually is workable in half an hour. While I'm waiting, this is when I can get started on the seasoning sauce, which we're going to create with some plum syrup, sesame oil, Sprite, and the seasoning packet. Now, I didn't have the Korean plum syrup at home, but I did have this peach syrup, which I'm using instead for that fruity sweetness and a little bit of vinegar to add back in some tang. And then to that, I'm adding in a few spoonfuls of Sprite, the seasoning packet, and a little bit of sesame oil to just round it out until we end up with this sweet, tangy, spicy sauce. Going back to our Sprite soaked noodles now, not gonna lie, I was very concerned that it wasn't going to be usable, but the noodles actually loosened up pretty easily with a texture that was tender but still bouncy. Very unexpected, but with the sauce poured in there, tossed around, this is honestly looking pretty tasty. This one also smells very refreshing, kind of going along with our cold noodle theme. Given how successful the last one was, I now have high hopes for this one. When I was testing the sauce, it smelled really promising, very sesame oil forwards right now. Also, I'm just really surprised at how much the noodles actually softened up even without hot water or, you know, being microwaved at all. This is again just soaked purely in Sprite, so I think I'm a little confused. There's definitely sweetness and spiciness. I think I'm confused because the initial taste actually tastes pretty good. I get all of those flavors in there, but I feel like the aftertaste is mostly just like straight sugar. You taste the Sprite a lot more versus the first one where I feel like everything else kind of covers the taste. This one is a little more Sprite forward, which I'm not sure we want. I think it has potential with a bit of adjustment here and there. I do wonder if it would have made a significant difference if I put the original plum syrup. But as it is currently, I think this one is a 6 out of 10 for me. I think it's missing something, but there are things to be done to make this better. Sprite is crazy. Now that we've transitioned into cup ramen noodle hacks, here's a fun one that also uses a different type of liquid to cook the noodles. Coconut milk is what we're going with here, so it's about to get really creamy. The thing about coconut milk though is that it is pretty thick, so it does take some time and patience, where I'm just pouring it bit by bit, letting it seep down through the noodles before I'm adding in some more. And rinse and repeat until I have the cup filled right up to the line. That's when I can pop it into the microwave and just microwave that according to the package instructions. Takes about 3 minutes or so. While it's hot, I'm just adding in the seasoning packet and another star ingredient, a generous spoonful of peanut butter. Give that all a good mix until you end up with this very luxurious and creamy sauce. Actually, it's not really a broth anymore at this point. Some cilantro, and we have a very decadent ramen experience waiting for us. Right off the bat, I have to say this one is incredibly decadent. It almost looks like some type of creamy pasta with how thick the broth, the sauce is at this point. It's a lot of coconut milk, so I wonder if this is gonna be super coconut forward. Huh. It tastes very different from how it smells. It smells like peanut butter and coconut, which makes sense given that that's the two things that we put in here. But when tasting it, the peanut flavor kind of falls to the back. Instead, you get more of that coconut milk creaminess and also that spicy beef flavor from the ramen seasoning packet. I will say it is a very, very heavy bite though. It almost feels like eating a super creamy mac and cheese, where it kind of just like coats everything in your mouth. So unless I feel like you're having an intense craving or you're just very into that kind of flavor profile, this is a lot to eat at once. I literally used up the entire can of coconut milk trying to cook this ramen through. So very interesting take. I've never had instant ramen this way. We'll give it props for novelty, but in terms of overall rating, 5 out of 10 for me too. It's just, it's a lot. Even as I'm talking right now, I feel like I need water. Great for one bite. I'm not sure for the entire meal. Here's another one that feels like pure indulgence. And if you are a mac and cheese person, I think you might like this one. So starting it off as per usual with a Shin Ramen cup, seasoning packets go straight in, directly onto the dry noodles. And for creaminess, we're gonna be filling this up with milk instead of water this time. Ideally, whole milk if you really want that mac and cheesiness. It doesn't stop there though. It gets fancier because the magic ingredient for this recipe is brie. That's what's really going to give it that ooey gooey cheesiness we're looking for. The brie I got also has chives in it, so I thought that was a nice addition. Not necessary though. You don't have to cut them up too much. It's almost nicer when it's chunkier. They just go right on top of the noodles and with the milk into the microwave for about 3 minutes again. And this is what that looks like, fresh out of the microwave, still bubbling on top. I'm giving everything a good stir to just help the cheese melt, and this one definitely feels a little more difficult to get the noodles to loosen up. It takes some patience. The broth is also still kind of watery. I tried letting it sit for a few minutes to let it thicken some more, but this is as far as I could take it. Still looking good though. Top it off with some scallions, and that is a spicy ramen and cheese hybrid. Here we are with another creamy one. Like actually, like it smells like mac and cheese, the cheesiness of it. You can also definitely see the layer of fat in here. Ooh, let me try with the broth. Oh, this one actually kind of tastes like a carbonara. Maybe the American version of it where it's like extra creamy without that sort of eggy flavor. It's actually really pleasant. Even if you don't like brie, I actually think you might enjoy this. The taste of it, the smell of it can sometimes be overwhelming, but I feel like when you mix it together in this way, it kind of just mellows out in the broth. It takes all of that funk out. In its place, you just get the umami-ness of it, you just get the creamy indulgence of it. The noodles might not be pasta, but I feel like it does give you some sort of that satisfaction if you just want something quick and easy. The aftertaste really does make me feel like I just ate some sort of fusion pasta. So I can imagine if this was even creamier, people might love it a lot. So, wow. I'd give this one a 7.5 out of 10. It's worth a try. Use whole milk though, don't be like me. This final hack on the list is actually a rice dish. I think this actually became very popular in our lockdown days, so much so that restaurants now actually have it on their menu. We went full circle. The first thing to do is to crush our noodles. I tried doing it directly in the cup, do not recommend, didn't work out, so really the better thing to do is to transfer the noodles to a bag. Use it as stress relief and just crush everything as best as you can until the noodles are roughly in these smaller chunks, putting everything back in the cup along with the seasoning packets, and then adding just enough boiling water to wet the contents. Really just up until the noodles are covered. We're not looking for soup this time. Cover it up and let it sit while I start working on the fried rice. Pretty straightforward. Heated up my pan, added in some oil, and I'm just quickly scrambling an egg, getting it to about half cooked. Then in goes my leftover rice and just stir frying all of that until it's totally heated through and nicely coated in oil. A nice egg fried rice. And now I can add in the soaked ramen mixture. Again, there should be no liquid left, just these nicely seasoned ramen squiggles. The important step is to keep stirring and tossing constantly because we want any excess moisture to evaporate, and also most of the flavor is coming from the noodles, so I just want to make sure it's distributed properly throughout. Just adding a little sprinkle of salt to taste, and then I'm actually transferring everything back to the ramen cup because I'm using this to help me plate it up nicely. So then once the rice is packed in there tightly, I can then invert it onto a plate to create this perfect dome of fried rice. Who knew I'd be eating rice in a viral ramen recipe video? But I think I really felt the impact of this when even like restaurants that started opening up in the city started selling this on the menu. They kind of actually serve it like this, you know, the cup on top, the mountain of rice at the bottom. And so today we shall be trying it. This one's a little more gourmet even because it has more ingredients in it, but I can't imagine this not being good. I mean, it's fried rice with ramen seasoning and little bits of noodle in there that add to the texture. There's no way this is not going to be good. It's a win-win. Very important, I will say, to use leftover rice so it's not too soggy with the additional noodles, but really can't complain. It's just a super simple way to season your fried rice, especially when you use the more gourmet Shin Ramen black version. Those extra ingredients, like I'm getting like the really meaty mushrooms in here. Ooh, I didn't even need to add extra scallions because it already had everything in there. Definitely a lot of ways to jazz this up too. You could add sausages, you could add Spam, you could add kimchi. Could probably even do a cauliflower rice version. Super, super solid. I have no notes. Great base to work off of to do as many things as you want right here. So I'm gonna give this an 8.5 out of 10. Kind of nice to be eating some rice after all those noodles. There it is, 8 of our Shin Ramen recipe hacks. I think you guys already know which one's my winner. That one with the Sprite and the cold noodles, so refreshing, so good. If there's one you have to try, that is the one. And honestly, if you want to experiment, I bought my 20-pack box at Costco. If you like this video, if you'd like to see more of our recipes, remember to like and subscribe. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.